Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild, a sudden, absolutely massive shift that's happening in millions of Indian kitchens. And believe it or not, it was all sparked by a crisis thousands of miles away. It's a fascinating story about geopolitics, a little bit of panic, and a kitchen appliance that basically became an overnight celebrity.
So let me just start with a number. 200,000. What do you think that is? 200,000 a day. It's not cars, it's not smartphones. No, this is the daily sales figure for one specific type of appliance in India. So what on earth is it? And what is causing this incredible frenzy? And there's your answer. We are talking about induction cooktops. I mean, just look at these numbers. Sales have gone from a pretty quiet 2,000 units a month to a mind-boggling 200,000 units every single day. That is not just growth, that's an absolute explosion. Which, of course, brings us to the big question we're going to unpack in this explainer. How in the world does a conflict happening so far away cause your local appliance store to completely sell out of cooktops? It's a crazy chain of events. Okay, let's get into it. So our story doesn't start in an electronics shop in Delhi. Nope. It starts on the world stage, where some major geopolitical tensions have sent shockwaves across the globe that ended up landing right in the middle of the Indian kitchen. So here's the root of it all, the disruption of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG. There's an ongoing conflict in West Asia that's really shaken up global energy supplies. And since LPG is the main way millions and millions of Indian households cook their food, even a tiny hint of a shortage is a massive deal.
And that massive deal? Well, it pretty quickly turned into what you could call a nationwide scramble. The worry about LPG wasn't just some background noise. It boiled over into a full-on consumer frenzy.
And how do you actually measure that anxiety? Well, you look at the number of people trying to book a new gas cylinder. That number shot up from a normal daily rate of about 7.5 million to nearly 8.8 million. That extra 1.3 million bookings, that's a huge signal of widespread panic setting in. Now, the official word from the government, specifically from Joint Secretary Sujata Sharma, was that this wasn't about a real shortage. She came out and said this was, quote, nothing but panic booking, and she asked people to calm down and only book refills when they were actually empty. But, while officials were saying don't panic, a shopkeeper like Ronak Bosson was on the front lines, and he was telling a completely different story. He's saying, look, the demand is real, it is overwhelming, and we are genuinely struggling to keep anything in stock. And this story wasn't just about families worrying about how they were going to cook dinner. The LPG crunch sent these huge ripples through the commercial world, too, hitting places like hotels and restaurants especially hard. So you really had the crisis hitting on two fronts, right? For regular households, it meant the headache of booking cylinders and a desperate search for an electric backup. But for businesses, like your local restaurant, the stakes were just so much higher. They were actually having to think about shrinking their menus, spending a ton on new equipment, and even facing the very real threat of having to close down for good. Yeah, and this quote from Harjinder Singh just says it all. For an industry that literally runs on commercial LPG, a big disruption isn't just an inconvenience, it's a potential death sentence. When he uses a word like catastrophic, you know just how serious this was. Okay, so you have total panic from both consumers and businesses. So how did the government and the industry itself react to this sudden shock? Well, they had to move, and they had to move fast. The private sector, for its part, just kicked into overdrive. You had factories running overtime trying to make more cooktops. The big manufacturing hub in Delhi NCR was pushing everything to the max. Merchant associations were trying to manage distribution fairly, and this is key. They sent out teams to make sure people weren't hoarding them or jacking up the prices. Meanwhile, the government launched its own big, multi-step response. They pushed to boost domestic LPG production. They made sure the supply they did have went to essential places like homes and hospitals first. They released reserves of other fuels like kerosene, and they even invoked the Essential Commodities Act, which gave them the power to control distribution and stop hoarding. All of these moves were really about putting out an immediate fire. But the big question is, did this entire episode accidentally kickstart a much bigger, more permanent change in the Indian kitchen? And what's really interesting is that it wasn't just about the induction cooktop. Once that became the hot item and started selling out, people began looking at a whole universe of other electric appliances.
We're talking air fryers, microwaves, electric tandoors, even those all-in-one cooking robots. People were basically finding any way they could to cook without gas. And that leaves us with this one fascinating final thought. Millions of homes across India now own electric cooking appliances, many for the very first time, all because of this one crisis. So, was this just a temporary blip on the radar? Or was this the unexpected push that's going to speed up a permanent shift to the all-electric kitchen of the future? I guess only time is going to tell.